Hey guys, it's Captain Matt. Welcome to Captain's Quarters First Class, a podcast from the Lighting Trade School. I am super excited. Today we launched the interview phase of this podcast where we've talked about it before, right? We're going to bring on some guys and gals that have really done something for business and been in the trenches. And hopefully we all learn a little something, hoping to ask a little bit deeper questions, not the same stuff that you can get everywhere else. So I'm pumped. I hope you are as well. I think everyone's going to get a ton of value out of this, me included, hopefully the guests, and definitely the listeners. So I'm going to jump in. The first guest is, you guys are all well aware of him if you know anything about me. We have the one and only Shane Glow Daddy Duffy. We're going to bring him to the stage. This man is a legend when it comes to service. He's got multiple seven-figure businesses, from window washing to lighting. This guy's in real estate and crypto. He's almost got that Midas touch, and I'm super excited to have him on the show. Shane, how are you doing today?
What's up, man? Like the intro music.
All right. Yeah, I found that just for you.
On the stage, yes.
That's right. Well, you are a rock star, buddy. You are a rock star. So, obviously we do a podcast together. So this one might be a little bit hard for you for not being a host and kind of just sitting in that seat of being a guest. So we can all get to know you a little bit more, about the early days. We know, maybe we don't know. Obviously, you have a GloGeeks shirt on. You are GloGeeks. That's your San Antonio-based company, and you are licensing out. You have some licenses. You're going across the country with GloGeeks. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that before we kind of jump in and find out some more about you?
Sure. So we do have GloGeeks San Antonio, right? We call that home base, corporate office. We started licensing in a franchise-esque kind of way all around the nation. We started this towards the end of 2024, and really here in 2025, we've kind of caught a lot of steam. We have 6 locations kind of around the nation, and we're hoping to bump that up to 50 locations in the next 18 months.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. So that's GloGeeks, and they go to where would they go to just kind of quick learn about that if they're interested to check that out?
Sure. So if you're interested more in the licenseship and kind of like what we offer, business in a box, and try to kind of rocket fuel you to success, save all the troubles and the slow start that we went through, go to GloGeeksGang.com. It just kind of has a little bit about what it takes, to be a GloGeeker, why GloGeeks, and if you're interested from there, just email me, Shane at GloGeeks, GLOGeek.com.
Sweet. All right, let's jump in. I guess my first question is GloGeeks. That's what you're talking about now. Is that what you consider your most successful business?
I mean, yes. But as of right now, at least, right? Like that's where 80% of my time and energy all goes into is GloGeeks. We've had several businesses, and I would say GloGeeks, as of right now, kind of is our naturally our highest revenue, most successful business that I've done.
Okay. Sweet. And have you, from like the start of when you were alive, have you ever had like a job? Like, were you in a job that you side hustled to get out of? Like, what did the business life of Shane start?
Pretty rare, right? I don't have a lot of job life experience. I joke, like I was just a horrible employee. Like I tell you that I was always really good, highly motivated, always the hardest worker, right, in the group. But I would just kind of butt heads with management, or if there's just a rule I didn't agree with, I just wasn't going to do it. So I wasn't like subservient, I guess, in a typical type job role. So even from early on, like as a teenager, from mowing lawns, having a detailing car business, opening up a rainbow vacuum office, selling door-to-door vacuums, lots of stories there. I did that when I was like 19. So like there was always just burning entrepreneurial desire. What jobs have I had? Well, like this was only like 3 jobs I can even think of off the top of my head. Like as a 14-year-old, I worked in an arcade. I became a manager. I was 14 years old. I started working full time, which I think really was illegal to work full time, but I didn't care. And I guess the owner didn't either. And then we moved to the Schlotzskys. I worked at the Schlotzskys at 15, 16 years old. We would, end up being a manager there, running reports at night, doing a lot of side hustling businesses and activities out of that restaurant. We started kind of our side hustle business, more in the illegal realm, when I was 13, 14 years old. And that kind of we made a lot of money from that. Outside of that, like we kind of went full on entrepreneur for maybe 5 years. And then my last job that I had was working as a sales rep at a car wash. I was a service advisor at a wash tub, which is a big chain here in San Antonio. I was full time with that for maybe a year and a half, 2 years. And slowly, as our side business started making more and more money, I worked less and less hours. And we left that business. I was 27, and I needed it just to buy a home, right? Like I needed that W-2 income, even though it was like super small. I was only working at maybe 3-4 days a month. It was really, really small, but I needed that stability. And then we kind of bought our dream home at 27, fired my job, and we were full-time entrepreneur since then.
Awesome. Are you tapping your microphone or something?
I don't think so.
Okay. There's a little tap.
Maybe I was tapping my desk like that. Maybe.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
And that's super sensitive.
Yeah, must be. All right. So you go full-time entrepreneurship doing what? What is that first business, or is there multiple businesses when you leave the car wash fully and just rely on yourself?
Yeah, so at 25, I started this fundraising business where we were putting sticker machines in elementary schools, called School Spirit Vending. A buddy of mine and mentor of mine, his name was Matt Miller, kind of had this grandiose idea and shared it with me. And we went to a PTA convention for schools. And like we ended up each getting 10 schools. And it was like it served this big need. And it was right around 2008. And at that time, like, the economy was crumbling, fundraisers weren't working, but like kids could come up with 50 cents for a little sticker, and these schools could make a couple extra $100 a month just off of letting us put this machine here. So it ended up kind of being a big hit, and we grew that. I was 25 or so when we started that. And I did have vending machines like in restaurants and stuff like outside of that I built over the previous 3 years. Stickers and little capsules and little temporary tattoos, gumballs, M&Ms. Bulk vending is the term. So we had 100 locations or so outside of that until we found the schools. And then we were like, well, holy smokes, like a school does way more revenue. It's safe. No one's breaking into it. There's no competition getting a sticker machine in a school. We went the fundraising angle and we customized it to the Redland Oaks raccoons. We made a Redland Oaks raccoon sticker. It's one of the 8 columns. And it went off like gangbusters. So before long, we scaled to 100 machines around Texas, and we were doing a few $100,000 a year. It was highly profitable. I was able to pay myself 6 figures. I was working part-time, and I was working in my business part-time and working a job part-time. And then that's kind of when we slowly started exiting the car wash. I was making 6 figures on the side, still working this dumb job, waiting to close on my home.
Wow.
So we ended up scaling that to like 200 something schools all around South Texas.
That's awesome. Are you still doing the sticker thing? Like, do you still have those? Like, what happened?
No, we sold it. We first sold like our area in El Paso, and then we sold our area in Austin, and then we sold our area in South Texas, that borders Mexico. We call it the Valley. And then maybe a couple of years ago, I just finally let go of San Antonio.
Oh, okay.
This was actually relatively recent, selling San Antonio, but I had my dad. He was working part-time for me. He wanted something to do in his retirement years, and he got to the point where he wasn't healthy enough to do it. I was like, well, I don't want to hire someone. I don't want to go through that again. It's an all-cash business. You have to have a lot of trust. So I just sold it.
Okay. Wow. Where did Glass Geeks, GloGeeks, which came first?
So Glass Geeks came first. It was in like 2016. A mentor of mine told me at this point, right, I didn't have a job. we bought our dream home. It was 8 acres, outskirts of town, big 4,000 for 4,300 square foot home. Like we loved it, but I was only working maybe 20 hours a week, going and doing my little routes. I didn't work summers because schools are closed in summer. I had 2 weeks off during Christmas break. It was like teacher hours almost. So my mentor of mine, his name's Aaron Walker. He has a mastermind group called View from the Top. And he tells me, Shane, he's like, why are you going and checking on machines? He's like, that's $15 an hour. Like, go hire someone, go start a new business, stop being complacent. So I was like, huh, wow, that was pretty awesome. I'm making 6 figures in my late 20s and not working and had this business. So there was another gentleman that I met in Utah. He had a business. I think it was like Awfully Clean Windows or something. I forget the name of it. His name was Jared Buckley. J-Buck, I called him. And J-Buck said, dude, there's really no competition in your area. Like, you should clean windows. You should do that in the summer times when you got nothing else to do. I was like, okay. So we had the idea of starting a window cleaning business that would develop into something that I can franchise. Because the sticker machine business ultimately became a franchise. My mentor, Matt, grew it to like 100 franchisees all over the nation. I was the national salesperson to like help with the sale of that. Because everyone kind of knew Sticker Shane. Sticker Shane was a success. He made 6 figures. He had this big business in the vending machine world. That was a big and but I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, so it was Glass Geeks. Yeah, we wanted to make it something that I could franchise. So like from day one, we kind of built it knowing that I would hire and scale fast. And that was 10 years ago.
Wow.
I'm 41 now.
Okay. So you're doing Glass Geeks, clean windows. Where the hell does GloGeeks come in? Like, how does that transition work? You're just washing a window one day and you're like, yeah, fuck this. I'm going to go play with some lights.
Well, I met in 2018 Josh with We Hang Christmas lights. At that time, Josh was at all the trade shows. He was kind of the only one out there teaching how to do Christmas lights correctly through Clippa and We Hang Christmas lights.
Okay.
So I went and I got training, and then we started installing Christmas lights. And I was like, holy smokes, this is amazing. The following year, I bought out like a competition. He had 30 customers or something. It wasn't a lot, but we bought him out and we kind of grew a little faster. And then we landed this downtown gig that was like $100,000, our second season in doing Christmas lights. So I immediately was like, this is kind of where I want to be, like Christmas lights. So we started looking for ways, 2019, 2020, well, how can I do lights year round and keep a crew busy? And I kind of, there was like this shift at that time. Like I was doing less and less washing and more, how do I do lights full time? So we started doing landscape light jobs. I went to a training hosted by the Decor Group or something back in the day. It was like nearly free or a few $100. I had sold a job and then went and found the training. Went and drove, did the training, went back and installed the job. No clue what I was doing. Those early jobs, I call them pre-meeting Nate, my pre-Nate jobs. They're really probably a joke, but at the time, I was like, man, I'm amazing. Look at me, I'm a lighting artist. And now I would just I'd make fun of those guys. I wouldn't make fun because that's not my style, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So and then we met Nate in 2021. And then kind of my life changed and I actually started more identifying as a lighting designer rather than just a guy who happens to install lights.
Sure.
And after spending thousands of hours around Nate, like even though we don't have the decades of experience that some other companies here in San Antonio have, I mean, I can confidently say there's zero competition that can design and install a job better than us.
Yeah.
Zero. Awesome. Like I know that for sure. And I tell clients that we have a very, very high closing ratio. Clients love us and we've just, okay, now we're full-time lights. Here we are.
Yeah. All right. So you've obviously done so much. So let's focus in on just like the home services. So Glass Geeks, GloGeeks, what is from that first year, what's a mistake that still cost you money or peace of mind today?
You mean, what is it? Just say the question again. What is the mistake I've made in lighting or just in business in general?
In service business, first year, whether it's glass, glow, what's that mistake that still either costs you money or still, runs across your mind that you can't believe you made that mistake that first year of business?
I would say you're maybe even laugh. Maybe this isn't even the answer you're looking for. It was a painful moment in business. It was a massive lesson. We did not know, or we're just too incompetent to realize we needed to collect sales tax and pay the Texas comptroller. And it got somewhere around 2020. We had somebody, I'll drop a dime on us, but like supposedly like a customer called Texas comptroller, hey, these guys didn't charge me sales tax.
Mm.
It was not true. Like I truly feel like it was competition that just really like knew how to like give you a lot of pain. And just even if we were legit and we collected sales tax and everything, like going through the audit process is painful. But we weren't. So they like backtracked us 4 or 5 years since inception of business. And they said, hey, you owe us $90,000. Before we even got to that point, what they did was they didn't even tell me and do an audit. They went and froze all of our accounts.
Oof.
All of them. Like, and this was right when we were about to buy a piece of equipment. It was like a wash skid. We were buying 23,000. I was in Florida picking up this wash skid when they froze all of our accounts. And part of that was like a loan from the bank to buy said equipment. And like, so they took all of my money. I'm down in Florida. They're loading the equipment up and I no longer have the cash. And no, much less, payroll or anything. It's like I'm trying to talk with these guys and say you got to get an audit. I ended up luckily putting everything on a credit card. They never gave that money back, but they said we owe 90 grand and that money's going to go towards it. It's like, okay, well, can I make a payment plan? They're like, well, you got to do these 20 steps. And if you do all these, we might grant you the ability to do a payment plan. So I'm going through all these ridiculous hurdles to try to get a payment plan. And in the middle of that, they freeze my accounts again. Like 2 months later, another 20,000. They just took no warning, no nothing. I'm doing everything they want. I'm trying to make payments for them. They take it all right before payroll again.
Oh my gosh.
Like, well, how am I supposed to pay my guys if you guys keep taking my damn money? It really felt like in the movies, right? You owe the mob guy money and the enforcer comes and says, all right, we're going to break your leg. You better have our money in the next week. We're going to break the other one. Like that is exactly what it felt like. So, I mean, there's super stressful time. We ended up paying them off in 9 months, gotten quite a bit of debt to do it. But we got them off our back and, we make sure to file every month now.
Yeah, I bet.
We never skate on sales tax. That was a big mistake. Just dumb and young in business I didn't pay attention to.
Yeah. No, I hear that. I have a similar story, not as much money, but same thing. Just it wasn't even intentional. It was just, young guy didn't know better. And well, they don't care. That's not an excuse that you can use, right? So when you say 90,000, there's a lot of guys listening to this. They're like, holy shit, you must have been a millionaire at this point. Like, what were you doing a month or a year at this point where you needed to pay $90,000?
Oh yeah, we were only doing a few $100,000 in revenue. We were not a 7-figure business. This was just 15, 20 grand a year for like the last 4 years. These were very small numbers. We were stair stepping up and growing, but our business was only 4 years old. It's like we might have hit 500,000 or so, like that final year, maybe. Like we were growing. I forget. I have a chart. I can tell you that.
But yeah, this rocked your world. This wasn't just like, just 90 grand.
It rocked our world. It was so hard. I couldn't pay anything. It was really bad. And in the middle of that, I had to replace a roof. My AC went out. We had to buy like our back property was going to be sold to a plumbing company. Like all sorts of weird stuff happened along the way. It was a very rough 2 years.
Wow. Now, I guess that leads in. I was going to ask, when's a time that you almost quit, but didn't? Did you almost quit? Did you almost like walk away at that point, or what? If not, what's a moment that you're like, I might not want to do this. Maybe I do need to go get a job.
It was funny as like stressful as that was. It was so stressful to me. Like I was recalling this story to my wife when we were talking about it, and she was like, "What?" She's like, "I remember that," but she's like, "But you never once like showed stress or signs. Like I never felt insecure that we couldn't pay bills or something." I was like, "What? You got to be shitting me!" Like I was crying in the shower at night, like curled up. Like how did you not know? And she was just like, "It's just your personality. You don't show it. Everything's super positive. You were pumped every day. Like you were never down. You never complained to me." And like that's true. Like my team never knew either. Like nothing ever skipped a beat. It was. I guess I'll take your quote that you always say. The crown isn't heavy. You just have a weak neck.
Right.
Of course, I think you drop a couple swear words on that, but
yeah.
No, you know what? Like, I just had a strong neck. There's never in my mindset like I need to quit or go bankrupt, and I very well could have. It's almost like the comptroller wanted you to do that.
Yeah.
They want you to go out of business.
Right. Wow, that's intense. So, that's a huge. We'll call it a failure. I don't know if it's a failure. I guess it's a failure to plan, right? You didn't know it. You're supposed to collect sales tax and all this. Well, like, what failure in your life actually built like your foundation? What is something that, and it looked like a total loss at the time, but now looking back, you're like, that's the moment everything changed to get me, eventually down this path to where I am today.
Question. And for the audience, like, I wish you asked these questions before, like top of the dome. Like, I could have really probably thought that there probably was some really big moments that like aren't coming to my head. Like that was certainly one of them. There were some really nasty installs or jobs we did, messed something up so bad, right? Like we had to pay damages. I had a guy fall through a window. We had a lift stolen from us. We had trailers stolen. We scratched the heck out of windows and caused like $10,000 worth of damage. So there's like a lot of like little hard lessons along the line that you learn and you just kind of move from. But I just call those more speed bumps. None of those were like this $90,000 hurdle, that we went through. And after going through a couple of these and getting on the other end, like now I wouldn't even think that's a big hurdle. Like a $90,000, like that would be a speed bump. It would hurt. I'm not rich, but that would be a speed bump now. And once you've already gone through it, well, it really isn't that hard. Like, what's the worst case that can happen in this particular situation? Well, the worst case is the customer's less than thrilled. We end up making it right. Like the worst case scenario, the guys get paid 2 days later. But there's just really not that many worst case scenarios anymore.
Sure. Okay.
If you, I don't know if someone told me this, but it's always stuck in my head. Maybe it was me that made it up. But if you want to make 6-7 figures, if you want to be worth, a net worth of 7 figures, at some point you're going to make a 6-figure mistake. I've made lots of 6-figure mistakes. I've lost 6 figures. I lost $100,000 in 48 hours in crypto. I don't know if I ever told you that story, but like I've lost like so much money. Like I would never make those mistakes again. And one day maybe I'll be blessed to have a 7-figure mistake. Right. That'll catapult me to being worth 8 figures or 9 figures.
I think, Nate had a similar conversation to me when he drove one of his UTVs off the trailer. He said, "Matt, you and I both make mistakes. My mistakes, I just add a couple zeros at the end. It's all the same." It's just so, yeah. Looking at it as like the blessing of having a 7-figure mistake. Because if you're making a 7-figure mistake, it means you had 7 figures to lose. Like that, it's a big thing. I think you have a great attitude on that. Speaking about attitude or beliefs, right? What's one belief you had early on in your business life that turned out to be dead wrong?
One belief early on turned out to be dead wrong. I don't have one, Matt. Because you might have had beliefs that changed along with you changing and growing as a leader, as your business changes, right? There's different decisions being made when you're seven figures. There's different decisions made when you're eight figures versus six figures. So I think that's just a natural progression, but there's not one thing that I just was inherently wrong. We made our core values very, very early on in our business, and that's always kind of like guided our decisions is going back to our core values. Like
Okay.
this is what we set up early on. So I mean, this is our values. Suppose if you didn't have that rock to kind of keep you centered to go back when you're making decisions, it might be easier to kind of go sideways, a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's awesome. Another question. So if someone followed you or shadowed you for an entire week, was one thing that would surprise them or you think might surprise them from how you either operate your business or how you live your life?
I wish this wasn't the answer, but I get so many people saying, Shane, like, I don't know how you do it all. Like, you don't have 5 minutes to your day, where you're just not being tugged or asked a question, called, emailed, text, or working. Like, I don't know how your wife even puts up with you. Like, you're too much. I'm like, really? Like, that just feels like life. This is life of, I guess, a busy entrepreneur or someone super motivated. But this is a very common thing. I couldn't do
Yeah.
it yet.
That's right.
You probably could.
Okay. Yeah. No, I hear that. Right. You're just, you're juggling. My one coach mentor calls it the trifecta of insanity. You're married, you're a father, and you own a business. Like you're insane. Why would you ever choose to do that? Right. That's what he says. Like you have to be a little bit insane to do these things on purpose. Let me
It's
ask
very
you.
hard. I think you have seasons, right? There's seasons of growth, where you sacrifice being the best husband or the best father you could be. And then
Mhm.
there's seasons, you get like Christmas season, for example. Like we just work hard. It's
Yeah.
going to be a busy season. And there are seasons, where my kids like absolutely need me. And there's 6 months to a year where we're just really focused on not exponential growth, we're just focused on family.
Sure. Yeah. Quite a juggling act, right?
Juggling that. Can't do all three perfectly every day, every year.
No, you strive to, but you got to give yourself that grace to know that it's impossible, right? Uh, Looking at your business, how it is right now, is there a part that you hate that you just haven't fixed yet?
I would say I'm still, I could be better, right, at systems. It could be better flowing without me. There's always like systems I have. I love systems, and we try to create as many systems as possible. But like they could always go back and be better. These could be
Mm,
more efficient. Why does my team not think like I do? Why do they need to ask me this question? So it could be ways of doing that better. I mean, I will say like our Glass Geeks business runs, like they are amazing. We have an all-star team. Like they don't bother me a lot. Like I get to do calls like this. I get to focus on GloGeeks and expansion, but
sure.
inherently, like I'm still an important puzzle piece in all of our businesses.
Okay. And we've been talking here. Obviously, we're talking about $90,000 problems. You have seven-figure company. But what is like the scrappiest thing you ever had to do to either land a deal or just survive a slow season?
I mean, there's sometimes like I'm not like over discounting jobs and selling a job. I think when you have employees and a team and like they need to get paid, like I can go a month without pay and I'll be fine. But there's no way like my team can go 2 weeks, without getting paid. So like sometimes it's like, hey, I need to fill this slot and keep them busy and discount a lot. I think this is part of being a leader, right? You got to like look after your team. Uh, they're more important than my pride of like having to go back and discount a job.
So you'll basically discount them just to pay make sure that materials are paid and your guys are paid, but you're not. There's no profit. You're saying you're scrappy as hell. I just need to keep these guys' families fed for them.
100%.
Yeah.
back in the day, right when it was early and we were starting off, if there's a customer, we're doing something, they're like, "Hey, do you guys trim trees?" Like,
Yeah.
sure, I got a trailer. Like, I'll trim your trees if that keeps my guys busy, for another couple of days. Now, I would not do that, and that would probably be a mistake trying to do things that you're not a pro at, because it ends up taking twice as long, and you end up like not even making money on the deal. But if it was a question of my team will not get paid next week if I don't put something on the calendar, I'll put anything on the calendar, as like a dedication to my team to keep them busy. I don't have to do that now. So let me be clear, like I don't do that. But if I had to, like 100% be asking my neighbor, like, "Hey, can my guys mow your yard?" Something like they need to get paid, and I need them come, next month when we're busy.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I remember years ago before, we were just saying no to people. We painted our fair share of porches and cleaned up basements and fixed propane fireplaces, like things, just as you're saying, right? Just to pay, just keep those guys. Cause when you are the leader, when you're the guy, there's no one else about you. You're the guy. So these other families and people's, their lives, their families, they like depend on every decision that you make. So, when, that's part of the whole heavy is the head, is because it's not just your immediate people that's working for you that your decisions affect. If they can't work that day, it affects their whole family. It's like this whole huge sphere that a lot of business owners I don't think grasp really the sphere of influence they have on every decision they make. Clearly you do, right? Because you're being scrappy to make sure those guys can still feed their families too.
Yeah, there's 40, 50 mouths that are trying to get fed, due to your efforts. You can't take that responsibility lightly.
Right. So what's something everyone says that matters in business, but actually doesn't?
I mean, everyone sometimes, I think some people get a little too focused on the small details, right? Where the small details matter, right? Do you know your numbers? Do you know your cost per click? Do you know, is everything super smooth running? Like all of that is definitely important, but it's not more important than getting your butt out of the chair and putting money on the books.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
always like putting money on the calendar supersedes anything else in our business. Like everything else we'll figure out and we'll do when we have the time to do it. But putting money on the calendar always comes first. So I think some new businesses maybe try to like wait too long and they get in this like paralysis of indecision. Like, no, I can't just go out and email all my customers that I do lights. Like I have to come up with this 5 email sequence and how am I going to build it out? And one of them has to have a text message in it. And well, what do I use to do a text message? What do I say? And then it's taking weeks. No, just pick up the damn phone. Hey, do you want some lights? I'm doing this thing, free demo, like whatever it is, like imperfect action always supersedes perfect action.
Yeah. Hell yeah. An ugly duck still quacks, right? Like,
right.
Just do something. I've seen that too, right? These guys, I know guys 4 or 5 years in still hasn't started in lighting. Still tells me he's trying to come up with a name. It's like, well, geez. Right. So definitely can relate to what you're saying there.
Yeah, I mean, Lupe's lights will do good for this week. Work on a better name for next week. Just stop procrastinating. And all of those things, I am not saying they're not important. Like you need to know your profit. You need to know the lifeblood of your business. You need to know if you're making money on that job. I'm just saying, putting money on the calendar comes first.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's super important, especially for guys listening that just getting started. It's easy to see. You can say, "Oh, I want that business. I want that business." Well, if you look back at your businesses, my business, anyone's business, looking back, it always looked ugly. And how the hell did we even pull off what we did to where we are today? So don't beat yourself up and think you need perfect everything, right? For sure.
Okay. And the advice changes. right? Like you either have time or you have money. If I was to start an entire another business, what would be entirely different than starting my first business? I don't need to be as scrappy.
Sure.
We would take more time training and having our systems in place before pulling the trigger. But for those listening that don't have 7 figures rolling in, and need to make money for a dollar,
Yeah. Okay.
you either have time or you have money.
What's something only you can share that you feel responsible to teach?
That only I can share. I don't know if I would say only I can share, but one thing that I really believe is important is when you're adding a new product or service or starting a business, to invest a little to get proper training to set you above the competition. No matter what we've ever done in business, I always had mentorship or was in a mastermind, took advice from people that were smarter than me, right? Because I think we kind of joke around that our tagline is the Dipshit Millionaire. Like, I mean, that's like a true story. Like, there's nothing special about Shane. I took a lot of action. So get training. We went and got training on window cleaning, on roof washing, on how to install Christmas lights, how to install landscape lights. And then we looked for better training. We kept advancing ourselves. And then I looked to advance my team. Well, how can I train my team? How can I send them to this training? So I've always, I'd say, invested probably 10% of my revenue into like learning or coaching, advancing, training into myself for my team.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to share, because so many guys who have never been involved in mastermind groups or coaching, like from guys who have been there, guys that are just one chapter ahead of you, is they always say, well, if they were a coach, they'd just be doing it. Why would they be doing it? This is all fairy dust. Nothing's real. And that's how I know they've never been part of a coaching group or mentoring group, or they've never been a part of a good one, because anybody successful, you're sitting here right now and saying it, those things matter. They save years of time, save you probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. All right. So you're right. Is that kind of accurate? Do you see the same thing with guys that are saying that coaching or mentoring doesn't work, or usually guys that haven't actually invested the time and money into it?
I would never have the mindset, drive, desire if I didn't seek out a mentor or a mastermind group early on in my 20s. There's no way. Like, I grew up super broke. My parents weren't entrepreneurs. They never invested a day in their life. They never owned real estate. They never had an employee that they were the owner of. There's none of that. So like my mindset needed to change. So I didn't have mentorships. And even now, like if I ever become the smartest guy or the biggest net worth in a group, man, I'm immediately looking to go to a different group.
Right.
I want to, be next to people with 8-figure businesses now, because that's what I want. You always want to be middle or lower on the totem pole, so you can always stretch yourself.
Yeah. Be the dumbest and the brokest guy in the room at all times, right?
Always.
What's something that you are afraid that you'll never accomplish?
I think you know me long enough that question's, it's not there, right? Right. I have an extreme amount of confidence, Caps. So there's like, saying something like that would be admitting out loud and giving life to something that I don't believe. I think I can literally accomplish anything I ever want to. Now, I don't know if will I ever be a billionaire? Probably not. But could I be 50 to 100 millionaire? Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. No, I think that answer actually speaks volumes, right? Because that's a mindset. And we both know, and listeners, your mindset will dictate so much of your life. Your successes, your failures will be based on your mindset. And, Shane just mentioned it too, right? When he gets to a level where his current group is not higher than him, he knows he has to go to that next level group up, because they have a different mindset. Not that smarter, they know more, they're better people. There's a mindset shift that they've had that he hasn't had, but you can't have it until you had this past one. It's like it's always leveling up, killing the old self and becoming that new man. So that's a great answer, Shane. I love that mindset. You are always positive, full of energy, a ball to be around because of it. So
yeah, probably my superpower, I suppose. If you were to ask anyone that really knows me, like this is me. I don't try to do that. This is just the way I am. Probably the way I've mainly always been, but that's been nurtured and mentored through having, mentors and people that are worth millions more than me for decades. Like that's not something I just started doing. I started doing that and being a part of a mastermind way before I could afford it. Like it was always important, to have that. I was just talking to one guy. He was in this like greater mastermind group I'm talking to. Oh, Curdy. Curdy is, he has millions. I don't even know. Like he's just a very, very successful guy. Very, very high IQ individual. PhD. Knows numbers. Worked for massive corporations as a CFO. Like Kurt is a smart dude. Like you feel dumb sitting next to him. Well, Kurt was talking, and he's kind of actually interested that he had someone that might be interested in being a GloGeeks licensee. His son, actually, and he blew my mind. This is kind of the I guess a testament of being to a mastermind. So he's like, so Shane, if you have the system for GloGeeks, you can take someone from like 0 to a 7-figure business. You've done it. You can prove it. You got proof of concept, a brand. He's like, why don't you just go and open up a bunch of corporate locations that you own rather than a franchise or licenseship model? I was like, wow, no, Kurt, that just takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of money. You got to pay a GM 50, 60 grand until he's even producing anything. You got to train them. You got to give him ownership of it, and build his way up so he treats it. He's like, yeah. He's like, do all that. So what you're saying, like the only thing you need is like, you already have the system. You've already got kind of the staff. So you really just need money to do that. But yeah, how much money would it take? He's like, well, why don't you partner with someone like me who can put a couple $100 grand, open up locations, take it to $1 million. He's like, and we can open up 10 locations next year. He said, do you want to pay yourself, a few $100 grand next year? Or do you want to pay yourself 800 grand next year?
wow.
Okay, Kurt. So it's like just stripped my mind to think, well, he's right. Like there are people out there. If you can't grow fast, well, maybe there's someone out there that's got 7 figures, only earning 5%, and they're looking to get into a service-based business because AI is going to take control of everything else, and it's a good opportunity. Like, well, okay, why not look for that? That exists out there, and I just wasn't really looking for that.
Yeah, that's a great point because to him it's like a no-brainer, right?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
No brainer. Why the hell didn't I do that? So we got another call scheduled in 60 days, somewhere in August. I forget the date. Booking a call with this guy, you literally can't book a call like just in 2 weeks. Like he's so booked. His executive admin's like, okay, he wants to book another call with you. We've got a call, scheduled for August 10th. And this was like 2 weeks ago that I made this call. Like, good gosh, like he's busy.
Wow. Yeah, it's like the doctor's office.
Yeah.
All right, last question from me. Let's pretend you had to start all over. We froze all your money, gave $500 gift card to Home Depot. What's the first thing you would do?
So I lost all my money. I don't have anybody. All I have is the knowledge in my head. I don't have $1 to my name, but a $500 gift card.
Yep.
First thing you gotta do is figure out what's the best way I can make money with the littlest amount of money possible. So I'd go right back to, I got to mow some yards. I got to spray for some mosquitoes. I've got to clean some windows. Like I would have to get into some kind of small service-based business that I can start making money, reinvest, build it. I would almost say that's exactly how we started Glass Geeks. Yeah, this is really like a used ladder and some squeegees,
Yeah.
with this,
Windex.
yeah, not quite Windex, but Dawn and water in a bucket.
Okay.
That's exactly. You know what? My daughter, she's 16. She's got this boyfriend. His name's Aiden. Aiden's a great kid. I love that kid. He's such a hustler, and they've been together for like 2 years or something, like an eternity in teenage years.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, where are you getting married? After college, and they're just cute kids. And Aiden started a window cleaning business after he met me.
Hmm.
And he talks about how he went to done that. Well, I mean, if you follow him on like TikTok and Instagram, like he posts some cool stuff. Like the kid bought 2 Corvettes. He's 17. My daughter's still 16. She's late summer birthday. But like, I mean, he's making good money, and the kid's still a full time student and a good student at that. He's just a hustler. Like he went door knocking. He posted on next door as much as he possibly could. He got his customers to recommend him on Nextdoor. He went and created his own Google My Business page. He created his own website. Just watching YouTube videos. Like he did all of this bootstrap because he's a 16-year-old kid, and his parents, his grandparents, they didn't have money to help invest him in it. Like literally, all he had was just like grit, a couple $100. And he and the kids, buying Corvettes cash. Super proud of him.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is quite the story for sure. I should have him on. That's a story.
Oh, yeah, exactly. He'd love to be on too.
Yeah. So I get, if I boil that down right to these guys listening, because obviously you and I both talk to a lot of guys, and so many, they get started in this entrepreneurship. Well, a lot of them are like just really good at their job. They think they can do it better than their boss. They get involved thinking that I'm the boss. I get to go buy my Corvettes, go walk on the beach, do whatever the hell I want whenever I want to do it. What I'm hearing you saying is if you had nothing and you're starting, you're well aware that you would be grinding it out, buying whatever you could, the cheapest you could, to make money, to buy the next best thing, to get the next best thing. But in that, I didn't hear you said immediately you'd go use that $500 to hire someone to go mow a lawn for you, right? There's that grit and scrappiness that is almost mandatory for you to get going in the service business. It's not just unless you have the money, right? If you have money, then here it's a different. Someone's got to be the grit guy, right? Am I hearing you correct?
Yeah, I mean, in that scenario, you only have $500. You're that grit guy,
Right.
And then hire someone as absolutely as soon as you possibly can. Now, if the scenario was different, right? I've got 20 grand in my bank account, and I've got cash flow because I've got income or a job. Well, then the conversation would be entirely different, right? You don't need to be out there doing $20 an hour work. You need to hire someone to do that. Two different conversations. You talked about you go back to using Aiden as example. Like I paid that kid to clean my windows. I went and showed him how, in a brief, 20-minute tutorial or whatever I gave him. It was probably 5 minutes to be honest. And that kid went and ran with it. Sometimes you can't say enough of the right things to the wrong person. You can't say enough of the wrong things to the right person. Like he just got it and ran with it and did it. Hey, Mr. Shane, what would you do to market or find jobs? Aiden, use your age to your example. Go post on Nextdoor, make a story and introduce yourself and that you're trying to save money for college. You're a high school student. Like, well, he went and crafted out, this beautiful thing, got a lot of jobs off of Nextdoor. Like he took action, even though it was like imperfect action. He did it before he had a website. He did it before he had a phone number. He did it before he had a business name. Like all of that came. Like the kid was just an action taker. I think some people listening to this might need to hear that. Like if a 16-year-old kid with zero affluent people in his family, like could get out there and do it, like you certainly can get out there and do it.
Yeah. Amen to that. That's awesome. All right. Well, that's all the questions. So people listen to this. Obviously, Shane is a great guy. You want to learn more about him, you can go to, what is it, GloGeeks Gang or
GloGeeksgang.com.
So GloGeeksGang.com. Maybe you're watching this. What's that?
The GLO, there's no W, right? Drop the W.
That's very important. It's glow. It glows so bright you don't need a W. Check out GloGeekGang.com. Check him out. Hit him up on social medias and everything. Shane, I really appreciate the time spending with me. You got anything else you want to say before we wrap this up?
No, I appreciate it. I can't believe we've been talking for 50 minutes here, Cap. So thanks for having me interview, share a little bit of my story. Hopefully, someone out there was like, I need to hear that.
Awesome. All right, brother. Enjoy the rest of your day. Guys, it's been Captain's Quarters First Class, a podcast from the Lighting Trade School. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Peace.